chambers. If you now please join me in rising for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Grandquist.
Here.
Langy.
Here.
Merrill.
Here.
Weeblehouse.
Here.
Murin.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Clausen.
Here.
File.
Here.
Okay. I would then look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
We then look for a motion to approve the full agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second. If no discussion, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative.
All right, that takes us to item number 22 on your council agenda, public hearings and related action. I will open this public hearing to receive a report on findings and suggestions from the Economic Development Citizen Advisory Review Committee as required by state statutes section 18-2715. And to open the hearing, Randy Gates, our finance officer, please, some background.
Yes, Your Honor. As you mentioned, statutes require a Citizens Advisory Review Committee, or CARC, to review the operation of the city's LB 840 Economic Development Program. But the citizens serving on the CARC are Cindy Morrow, Brandon Day, Aaron Otten, Jan Ann Einsbar, and Kathy Means. I also serve on the committee as an ex officio non-voting member of the CARC. Statutes require that the CARC meet every 6 months and to report to the council on its findings and suggestions at a public hearing called for that purpose. CARC met on December 3rd, and the CARC's report, which includes a CARC review checklist, is included in the agenda packet. As you can see from the CARC report, the Economic Development Program had $564,000 of cash at the end of October. Last property tax under the current voter-approved plan is levied for the current fiscal year ending September 30, 2020. We committed $75,000 of cash as a match to the USDA grant the city has been awarded for the Small Business Revolving Loan Fund Program. At the December 3rd meeting, the CARC was also provided an economic development update. The city's been working with the Greater Norfolk Economic Development Foundation on several projects, including the 140-acre business park in southwest Norfolk and redevelopment of the former Alco property downtown. The city is looking at hiring a consultant utilizing EDP funds to ensure future development of the Alco property aligns with the best interests of the community. So that would also be coming out of the $564,000 of cash. And then there's a remaining debt service payments. And altogether, we probably have about $200,000 of that money that's not currently committed. Take it through the end of the program. As shown on the review checklist for the December 3rd meeting, the CARC found the city's economic development program is operating in compliance with the budget and voter-approved economic development plan. And answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Any questions for Randy? This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to make comment can do so now. Seeing and hearing no one, I will move to close discussion and close the hearing and move to item number 23. Open this public hearing to consider the redevelopment plan for the Arborview redevelopment project. And again, Randy, could you kick off the discussion on this, please?
Yes. The Community Development Agency accepted the Arborview redevelopment plan on November 4th and forwarded it to the Planning Commission for recommendation. On November 19th, the Planning Commission held a hearing to receive comments on and review the plan. After the hearing, the Planning Commission found the plan to conform with Norfolk's comprehensive plan and voted 7-0 to recommend plan approval. CDA at the December 2nd meeting approved resolution number 2019-14, recommending approval of the redevelopment plan to the city council. Granville Custom Homes submitted a TIF application for the redevelopment of the Arborview subdivision, which is immediately north of the North Park subdivision. The redevelopment project will consist of constructing approximately 13 single-family homes over the course of multiple phases and years. These homes will be situated on smaller lots, contributing to their affordability. Some of the streets serving the proposed redevelopment were put in as part of the North Park development. Granville will extend East Bluff Avenue to serve the eastern residential lots and provide access to the planned city park in this area. Granville will also construct sidewalks and water and sewer improvements serving the development, and electric utilities will be extended to each lot in the development. TIF will be used to pay for these infrastructure improvements, site acquisition and preparation, and related development cost. On August 28th, the Economic Development Subcommittee reviewed the TIF application and recommended moving forward with the acceptance of the redevelopment plan. This has taken a little longer than normal since only a portion of the Arborview plan was in the East Omaha Avenue blighted and substandard area. So it was first necessary to amend the blighted and substandard area to include all of the proposed development. And that process wasn't completed until October 21. The original redevelopment plan that Granville submitted, included in the agenda packet, was for $463,850 of TIF. But the redevelopment plan included in the agenda packet is for about $45,000 less than that, because after the original plan, more costs were updated, reflecting a land survey and topo, and the TIF amount was reduced by the amount that the redevelopment costs were reduced, and the TIF request is now for $418,874. I'd answer any questions, and I see the redevelopers also here available if you have questions.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Any questions from the council for Randy? This is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to come forward to make comment on the matter can do so now.
Hi, my name's Mary. I suppose I better sign in. My name's Mary Swenson. I live right over in that redevelopment area. We have some concerns about the area and extra housing going in there. There's already gonna be over 500 or 600 cars coming through there that was in that development for North Park, coming through those little areas that the streets are crap. And there's little kids running around all over and not used to that much traffic coming through there. You add 13 more houses, and what is workforce? Are they gonna be coming in and out and in and out? And are we gonna have some lower people coming in and out of there and on the trail? We're concerned about all the extra people coming in and out of there. They've already weaseled through the apartments because those got passed on their final things the Monday following the flood, that the flood was going through. When we had North Park brought up, our whole area, we had half of this room full of our area that is right behind North Park on Willow Street, Bluff Street, Paswalk Street, all right along the area that it's going right into. We said, okay, you're gonna do housing, you're gonna do duplexes. We said we don't want a lot of apartments over there. All of a sudden, boop, there go the apartments. The apartments are going up, nobody knew about it. because we were not within that 300 foot area that we had to be told about it, that things were going on. Those all went in, so we're figuring at least 500 to 600 cars coming through there. There's not gonna be a lot of people. I was just on 275 trying to get out the other day. People are coming through there at 60 miles an hour to Logan Street. They're gonna be going that fast on Chestnut Street, trying to get out of there. You guys gonna put any lights up or anything? No, the city and the state are not gonna put lights up there. So they're gonna end up coming down Paswalk and down Bluff. And that's right through where all the kids are and everything. And those streets, right now, if I leave work at 7:30, 7:45, people are flying just through there already. And the housing isn't even up. We're concerned about that extra housing of the extra 13 houses going in there. I'm sure you guys have already got it planned out and it's already passed, but we're gonna say some concerns on it because we are really concerned. It says that they're gonna put a park over there. There's not that much room for a park. Behind those triplexes that are already built, there's a waterway that is for overflow. There's not that much room right there for a park. It's gonna be right on the river. You guys gonna take care of all that? When they put that trail in, I had a German Shepherd that I walked around the neighborhood daily. Mr. Carlson, the lawyer here in town, his dog took off and jumped me and my dog, and we were on the ground. So when that trail went on, that was a good thing. We thought, okay, we can walk back there without having to worry about other dogs coming off. The city dropped that before I could even get anything done. So I'm not happy about that. If I have a whole bunch of dogs coming out on that trail and people that aren't paying attention, I'm gonna be pissed. So, there's a lot of people going in there. Okay, we're accepting it. People that are with me, they live right back behind that housing development. Those new houses are high. So all that water that was coming in over there during the flooding, where's all that water gonna go? Right into these guys' backyards. Where the Arbor Manor or Arbor area wants to go in, that was all full of water. I don't know if anybody's gone over there and looked at that. That was all full of water during the flood. None of that water was going into the flood control. It was shut off. That water was high, and it was coming across that field. And now you're putting a whole bunch of housing in there. So I guess that's all I have for right now.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Any questions, Mary? Okay. This is a public hearing, so anyone else wishing to make comment can do so now. I want to make sure anybody else that wishes to come forward has the opportunity to do so. Okay. Seeing and hearing no one, I'll move to close the hearing and move to item number 24 and look for a motion to consider resolution number 2019-74 approving the redevelopment plan for the Arbor View redevelopment project.
Your Honor, I'd offer for consideration Resolution 2019-74.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second. Any discussion or comments, council, on the redevelopment plan? I think I would just ask, many of the concerns that Mary shared regarding traffic and drainage have been considered in the area in terms of development of the Norfolk division, and now the newly proposed development. I wonder if staff, Steve, I know there were discussions about traffic in the area, and the impact of new developments there and flow. Do you want to give some background for public record on what was considered and what was found during those studies?
We had submitted that information to the DOT, and the DOT did kind of a high-level study of that area and the number of lots, multifamily, single-family, trip generation, and determined that there was no warrant for a signal down at 275 and is that Chestnut? Interior to the development up there, probably around where Bluff and Paswalk are coming together. Again, there's no, the traffic counts in that area do not warrant any signal installation. We are going to be installing some stop control over there. We believe that Paswalk will be potentially where the primary corridor in and out from the north side. And so we're going to provide free flow for that and stop Bluff. Drainage, like you say, we have looked at the drainage. We've worked extensively with the designer for Norfolk. There is a retention facility back on the east side of that development. That is the city retention facility, so we'll be the ones maintaining that. To the north side of that, kind of south of Bluff, there was an area there that we have designated as park, and we'll develop that into kind of a trailhead area. We are considering parking potential for a restroom in there with regard to river activity and so forth. The flood, when the flood did occur in March, the gates were closed, and so the North Fork was not able to drain into the levee system. We had brought in several large pumps to manage that. Once we had those here, we were able to drop that water level back there. It did take us 2 or 3 days to get pumps here. We are exploring potential to mitigate that in the long term with some permanent installations, so that should that ever occur again, we've got pumps built into the system that would just kick in.
Regarding that park space, that land, that property was gifted to the city for specific
That was turned over as
park uses.
as part of the development for park use. And so like I say, there is a detention facility back there. The north half of that will be fairly shallow, and so that'll be designed to be park space. We may put some kind of a park play system in there, as well as, like I say, the restroom and parking.
How many acres is that altogether?
I think it was 2 acres that were given.
Any other questions or discussion, council?
Yeah, there was, Ms. Swenson had brought up some numbers. The 500 to 600 vehicles, I don't know, was that part of our study, and did that include the apartment, a couple buildings that are gonna be there?
I'm
or
not sure where that number came from, or if that came out of the study. I just did a quick count based on single-family residences, and I would see somewhere in the range of 200 to 225 trips per day generated by the single-family residences up in that area. Some of those will go south, some of those will go north, some will use Bluff, some will use Paswalk. The multifamily, I don't know how that's necessarily going to split. I'm suspicious that that'll split probably 3/4 to the south, maybe 1/4 to the north. I don't have a number in terms of what that's going to generate.
And generally on the drainage issue, you talked about the pumps, because that system is designed to close those gates when the levee's full. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
And this was a flood that we haven't seen in how many years? Kind of unpredicting, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can't predict when we're gonna see that again. We do have some pumps on hand, and we have, just as a function of some other contact this fall,
We're going to be talking to some folks that have large pumps, up to 24 inches available right here in the state, down in the Omaha area, and potentially just commit to that pump so that it is there with our name on it should we need it.
Okay, all right.
Any further discussion?
How many apartments?
Ma'am, if you want to interact, you have to come to the podium.
Mary Swenson, how many apartments are going in there? Nobody's ever told us anything like that. How many different family apartments are gonna be in there?
56. I'm going off of this first phase, and they were only approved for right now for 56. Randy, does that number seem right to you for the first part?
I haven't called up the plan yet, but that does seem right.
56, so that's 112 right there, cars. You figure every family's gonna have at least 2 cars, minimum. That's 112, plus the 350 or whatever that you just said. It's close to 500, I'm sorry. It's close to 500.
Ms. Swenson, could I just ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Because you had noted, and I didn't get a chance to ask you when you were up here, about that there's lots of vehicles driving excessive rates in that within your neighborhood.
Yeah, they're starting to,
Okay. So where are those folks all coming from that are driving through your neighborhood right now?
some of them are just coming from that corner,
People that
from-
actually live in the neighborhood?
actually live there right
Okay.
now.
All right.
Some of them, I don't know, we've had a few trucks come through
Okay.
there that are
I've-
working on the
right.
development. There's trucks coming through there.
On the traffic concerns, I'd suggest that, when the meeting's over, the police chief's standing right back there. I'd give him a time frame for your concerns so he can have staff monitor that area.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's kind of a valid point too, because right now there's nobody living back there. And so if there's excessive speed and stuff like that that's occurring in that area, I would pose that it's probably occurring by the residents that currently live there. And as when the earlier portion came on and we were discussing it, I truly believe, if you can do as many counts as you want, saying there's gonna be 500 trips a day made there, but I truly believe that the majority of those are gonna go down to Omaha Avenue, because it's a right-hand turn going into town, and that's not a hard turn to make, and it's a left-hand turn, and that's not a hard turn to make if you're not doing it at 8 o'clock in the morning and you're not doing it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because my business is on Chestnut Avenue and Omaha Avenue, and you know that, and you see that, and it's not a difficult turn, and people are not going to meander through residential area unless you want to present the worst-case scenario. So,
I don't want
Steve.
this all, go ahead, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shane.
All right. This all came about when we first had this discussion about the development going in there. When the first round came through, the traffic was gonna be directed onto Bluff only. You guys remember that? And that was a big concern. We were worried about going down Bluff, hitting Box Elder, and then crossing over to Paswalk. And Paswalk is somewhat of a problem if you live in that neighborhood, because it goes from 30 by the ball fields to 25 once you hit the residential neighborhood past Logan. And people they continue to go 30 all the way through there. I mean, I lived on Paswalk for 10 years, and it is alarming how fast people fly through there. So I can see some of the points, we did, one of the concessions, I guess you'd say, for this development to go in there was for them to buy more land and get over to Paswalk. So we weren't just talking about Bluff. Now we try to get rid of that bottleneck going down Bluff onto Logan. We thought if we could open it up, get over to Paswalk, we could spread that traffic out a little bit, because, I used to use Logan all the time, turning on to 275. And the biggest problem you have there is the westbound traffic coming to town. They're going 55, and they fly by that 35-mile-an-hour sign before they get to the lights at first, and it gets kind of I mean, I know they're just moving pretty quick, even if so it's somewhat kind of hard to judge. So that was always a concern. So I guess, one of the biggest things that happened out of this, for this development to allow it to go, was for us to get that other street in to Paswalk. You know, and, because it was gonna go no matter what. You know, the housing study was brought before the council, we needed houses, this land came up, and, the developer was willing to do it, and, you know, in a town this size, sometimes when you have a developer willing to do something, you kinda have to, you can't be too too choosy about how that's done, because we needed the houses, and this is the houses were gonna go there no matter what. I lived there at the time, and, you know, my biggest concern was everything coming in on Bluff, because I agree with you, the traffic, it's crazy there in the mornings, and, but I think by pushing some of that to Paswalk, Bluff, and then Chestnut, we've got 3 ways in and out, which is better than 2. You know, and if we can continue to monitor the situation and try to get traffic to slow down, maybe it's time to look at that 30-mile-an-hour speed limit that runs by the ball fields, you know, on Paswalk. You know, because that brings people into the neighborhood going 30. And Logan's, I feel bad for people who live on Logan, because Logan's, it's scary. You got parking on both sides, narrow street, and you see a kid step out with, or, you know, that's just, people fly down Logan too. So I can appreciate your concerns about the traffic. I think that the discussions early on, I mean, and this is before the departments and all, but the discussion early on was really to try to get 3 ways in and out, so we could limit where the 500, I guess, you know, like you brought up, traffic count would end up coming in and out of there. And like Jim said, you know, 8 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you know, noon are always the worst times, in any particular time in Norfolk when you're driving around with heavy traffic. So for the majority of the time, I would imagine that traffic should be somewhat normal for the neighborhood after those busy times. You know, you're gonna have an influx of traffic, but it'll be at least a spread out over 3 ways and not 1, or not 2, so.
And to confirm what you said, Andy, the plan does call for 2 28-unit apartment buildings in Norfolk, so 56 units.
Okay.
Well, my
Ma'am,
name-
welcome.
My name's Sarah Feckner, and my land adjoins to this community. They built those houses about a foot or foot and a half higher than my backyard, and Jerry Nemec's is right next to mine. And when we had that flood this spring, our lots were full. There was nowhere for that water to go. So now these houses are higher, and all that water's gonna run off onto our property. How do you get rid of that water? I'm gonna have to buy sandbags, put around my house. I mean, it came pretty damn close. So, and it did come in the back of his other house. I mean, water was. But you got all this runoff, so, and you really can't have that, can you? I mean, I can't handle someone else's runoff. So there needs to be some kind of drainage there between the properties. That's my concern. Otherwise, I'll have to buy a boat. Drainage boat.
Steve, can you address that drainage question?
Well, I'll need to look specifically at that, but I mean, I would say generally she's correct. We try not to design developments to drain into other people's property, that drainage occurs along the property line. Typically, we'll create a drainage easement along the property lines to get that drainage to the adjacent streets. But, I mean, I'd have to go out there and look specifically at what's going on. I'm assuming she's talking about the boundary between, it runs north-south between Norpark Development and the existing housing that was there. I mean, I'd have to go out there and look and see if it's been built according to plan. From a drainage perspective on that rear lot line.
It would be
There
nice.
is, I believe there's like a 20-foot, we have a 20-foot easement back there that is cities right now, and I think there's a NPPD power line that runs down there if I.
The main sewer line runs, if those guys put a deck on their house, it's going to be right underneath that deck. That's one of the main sewers.
Yeah, there's a, it's in a 20-foot easement.
Question I had maybe for Ms. Becker, if I'm pronouncing that correctly? Feckner, thank you. Just besides during the flooding, which I think we can all agree was an abnormal event that occurred, we did have a lot of rain all summer. Did you have water issues?
Ma'am, can you approach to the podium?
I'm sorry to ask you to come back up, but did you have more water issues throughout the summer as a result of that development?
Yeah, it sits back there.
Okay.
I mean, the water, even at a normal heavy rain, you know, like, that rain when we had you had to use the plows to move the ice on the streets.
Okay.
Our street was full. I mean, I walked in the water up halfway up the calf of my leg, and that all comes right down between our houses.
Okay.
Between Jerry Nemick's house and my house and the neighbor's house.
And this would have been before this development, you were
Yes,
having
even
issues like that too?
But
Okay.
now you got this development that it's like damming it up, you know?
Okay.
So, and I do have some pictures from that, but,
Okay.
yeah, I don't know.
All right, thank you.
what to do with it.
Thank you.
We do have a developer from this project here tonight if you wish to address any of the drainage plans for this particular redevelopment plan. Or no?
Steve, NDOT did a study of Chestnut and Omaha Avenue, did they not, 275? Determined that the traffic count didn't warrant a traffic light.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I believe they did what I would call a high-level study, looking at their traffic counts through that area, just to see where the counts were and whether or not those counts met warrants for traffic signals.
And do you know, in that study, how close they were to that trigger point that would put a light in there?
I don't know that, but I would say they were quite a ways from that number. You know, I don't, a development like this wouldn't be triggering that.
Well, that was kind of the general ideas. Nobody thought it would trigger that, but I was just kind of curious if you knew how close it was to that trigger point. And going forward, the speed limits coming in from the east, going westbound on 275, is that our responsibility, or is that the state's
On
responsibility?
275?
Yeah.
It's a conversation between us and the state. I mean, they have policy on how they implement speed reduction coming into communities. That's been a conversation with them there, as well as on the north side coming in on 81. I would have to go back and look at the notes on that, but my recollection is the speed that's there right now, based on the developments that's out there and where the city limits are, that it's where they would like to see it.
Okay. Last question, how big a deal is it to request another study of that traffic light in a year or so?
I think
Or a few months or whatever.
As we see development, as we see traffic patterns start to develop, it's very reasonable to ask for another review of that.
And they're open to doing that,
Yes.
that's what they get paid to do, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other comments, questions, council? Any further discussion?
I guess I just have one comment for the redeveloper, just to, please make sure when your people are coming in and out of that area, to be mindful of the citizens in those streets. They are quiet. I live on Bluff, been there for 21 years, and it is a quiet neighborhood. So I know when they did tree removal, there was an issue. I had some phone calls from constituents, and I made a phone call right away. It was stopped right away. I just think it's to make sure the developer is conscious of what is going on down there as your subs are coming in and out of the area, to be mindful how they do it. And if citizens do in that area, just give me a call, or call the city, because they do take care of it right away when it becomes an issue.
Okay, thank you, Councilman. Any other comments, questions, or discussion from the audience? Okay, hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, Resolution 2019-74 is adopted.
Takes us to item number 25 on the regular agenda. Would look for a motion to consider approval of ordinance number 5644, annexing a tract of land generally located south of Highway 275 and west of South Victory Road. As a note, ordinance number 5644 passed on first reading at the December 2nd, 2019 City Council meeting.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Motion and second. Steve, if you'd refresh our memory on this, please.
Mayor and Council, this is a annexation for development south of 275 on Victory Road, be on the west side of Victory Road, south of Highway 275. This would be annexing that parcel of land. It would also annex to the east side of the levee, and it would annex up to the center of Highway 275.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Questions or comments, council? If not, short title, please. Brianna.
An ordinance of the City of Norfolk, Nebraska to annex to said city a tract of land lying in the northeast quarter of Section 35, the northwest quarter of Section 36, all in Township 24 North, Range 1, west of the 6th PM, Madison County, Nebraska, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and to provide that this ordinance shall be published in pamphlet form.
Okay, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative. Ordinance 5644 carries on second reading.
Item 26, would entertain a motion to consider approval of an engineering services contract with Olson Incorporated for the South Highway 81 Water Extension Project for an amount of $7,837.
I'll make the motion.
Your Honor. Second that, Your Honor.
Motion second, and again, Steve, some background on this item, please.
Mayor and Council, this is a small contract to do some topographic survey services south on Highway 81 as a function of a potential water main extension from the south side of the river down to Sherwood Road. It would also extend water main across to the west side at North Airport Road and extend water over to the airport at Sherwood. We've been visiting with landowners in that area. Actually, they reached out to us. There's several landowners down there that are very desirous of having water service from the city. We started getting contact from them probably around last April. We have spent time looking at a potential project, visiting with all of the landowners down there, and trying to look at how we'd bring a project forward. The next step is to meet with the Public Works Council Subcommittee and kind of lay out the plans for that extension. What this does is just allows us to get in there before the winter weather sets in anymore and we get more snow than what we would be desirable for an adequate topographic survey. So we're just trying to get ahead of that and get the survey work done.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any questions?
Steve, the topographic survey, I mean, how big of an area will they be studying in that corridor where you want to put these?
We would probably survey from, I would say generally speaking, from probably the center of the northbound lanes out to the public right of way, to the east to the public right of way,
Okay.
and then down all the way to Sherwood Road.
So, City of Norfolk put a sewer extension in 2-3 years ago.
Correct.
Was there an engineering study similar to this done at that time? I would assume maybe there was.
A study or survey?
A survey, the topographic survey?
There would have been, yes.
Would we be able to use data from that, or is something significantly changed out there that we wouldn't be able to, or have we explored that option?
You can, but what you don't capture is any new utilities.
Okay.
You also have risk that the engineer using that, how did they capture that? What datum were they on? And so as you pull that into another engineer's design.
For the benefit of the public, I mean, without getting too detailed, so they look for utilities and lay of the land type and what else?
Correct. So we're capturing elevation and we're capturing topographic features. So any kind of ground surface structure, hydrants, buildings, edge of roads, any public utilities, any private utilities would have to mark out their utility as a function of that survey.
Okay, so it's a little
And
more
so-
detailed than just how the land slopes and what have you.
Correct.
All right,
Correct.
thank you.
Steve, on the, where it's at North Airport Road, how far is it projected to expand past that, or to the west?
It would extend just to the west to get to the other side, and then go up the frontage road there along, to get water up to Caterpillar and a couple, those businesses right along in that area. It would not go as far north as the sewer project did.
I was meaning west.
West, it wouldn't go past the I believe it's Coca-Cola distributor right there on the corner. Basically, it goes to I think the first business to the west side of the intersection there.
Okay, just a point of inquiry you may want to make on that, because the National Guard, state of Nebraska, was looking at doing a significant well project out there.
Have we had, I'll ask our sewer and water director. Dennis, have we had contact with National Guard?
No, we haven't.
Dennis, can I have you come forward?
Dennis Watts, Water Sewer Director. Jim, we currently have not. We will touch base with them since you mentioned it. You know, at the time, they really wanted water that when they built out there originally in 10 or, you know.
This is, the only reason that I brought it on up, I'm aware of a significant sinking of a well that they're looking at doing out there.
Okay,
They may even have an underneath contract at this time.
okay.
It deals with the water going to their fire suppression trucks that they have there, along with.
Right. It's a good
They're-
point. We will
they're
touch base with them.
potable,
We'd kind of
so-
steered clear of that due to the last, you know, with some of the issues with the sewer we had last time. However, it's exactly what you're saying, and we will touch base with them with that new information.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item number 27, look for a motion to consider approval of amendment number 1 to the engineering services agreement with JEO Consulting Group Incorporated for the Brosh Avenue 5th Street to 1st Street project for a total amended amount of $70,046.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion and second, and Steve, you get some background on this, please. Mayor and council, as a function of the design of the Brosh Avenue project from 1st to 4th, that project did see growth during the design process that extended a little bit further, almost all the way to 5th Street as a function of that corridor. There was also the extension up 4th, up to the railroad tracks, where we added in the resurfacing on that, as well as water, redoing the water and sewer under that prior to paving. Two other items that developed on that project is we looked at a roundabout at 4th Street, and we have a preliminary design for a roundabout at 1st Street on that project. The 4th Street roundabout we have moved away from. That'll be a traditional intersection there. The 1st Street roundabout is still under consideration, and we are working on a model to present again to a subcommittee, council subcommittee, before we would move that forward any further. The other aspect of that project was we did a fairly substantial traffic study. We did a full downtown traffic study from 1st Street to 7th Street, Madison North to Prospect. And so those costs added to the project. Some other expenses in there, we did bid the project twice as a function of no bids on the first bid. We went back in there and had some value engineering and some redesign work done. So we had a small cost associated with the engineering on that. In working with JEO had submitted an additional additional services to the tune of approximately $145,000. We looked in depth over a period of about 6 months at that. Spent quite a bit of time discussing those overruns, where those overruns occurred. And what's before you is a change order for a little bit less than half of that overrun, of $70,000, $70,046. That would equate to, with that, the addition of that fee, that would give us a design fee of 10.43%. If we take out those items that are kind of additional, the roundabouts, the traffic study, that gets us down to a design fee closer to 8.69%, just by removing the $39,000 traffic study and the preliminary design on the 2 roundabouts. 8.69% for the services that were rendered by JEO is certainly reasonable. The Norfolk Avenue project, as an example, that was at 9%. That fee was about $424,000 on about $4.7 million in construction. So just from a comparison standpoint, you know, that fee with the additional $70,000 amendment would be a reasonable design fee for the project.
So Steve, when I was looking at the original agreement amount of $394,300 and the amendment amount of $70,046, I get 18%. Is that just on engineering services?
Construction of the project is $4 million right now.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? So,
Well-
so you're the four.
And maybe you could go over what you, maybe I missed something about what you were talking about. I wasn't looking at the $4 million number. I was looking at the original
The original
agreement amount,
contract.
engineering agreement at 394.3.
Right. So
Then you're
they're
gonna add 70,000.
So their original contract included services beyond design. So there's some construction services that are included in there. There's construction staking, there's some construction support. That's about $30,000 in those 2 items right there. I get for design services fee, I get about $433,000 with this amendment.
The original contract did not include the 4th Street to the tracks portion of it?
That's correct. We added that as, you know, the condition of that is failed up to the railroad tracks. And so to get in there, disrupt the traffic and not fix that and have to go back at some point in the near future and do that, we'd like to get in once to an area, fix it and get out.
So I wasn't here when the original contract was approved. Did that include the traffic study back in 2018?
It did. The original design services of $394,300 included just shy of $40,000 in traffic study.
So, and I added in the extra for 4th and the extra to go to 5th, just doing some rough math. It's around $78,000 to $79,000 a block. Is that pretty average for something like this, or based on your experience?
Yeah, you know, if we're in that, if the higher you go, generally the lower you expect to see for fee. You know, as an example, right now on Benjamin Avenue, from a design fee perspective, we're actually up in the 12% range. It just, for traditional design, when you think about whether you're going to be at 10%, 8% maybe on a multi-million-dollar project, you got some of those additional services. A traffic study of this size would not be included in that. Although I left the drainage study in there, we did have just shy of $18,000 in drainage study. Again, that corridor, we knew there was substantial flooding in that brush corridor and wanted to be sure. In fact, that was one of the goals that we set as a, with the stakeholders was, not to build this and then have a failure from a flood perspective, on the next event. So we wanted to be sure we were addressing that need. So we had the $18,000 drainage survey in there. So again, we're in that 9% range. If you pull out some of those, the roundabout preliminary design and that $39,000, $40,000 traffic study puts us just a hair below 9% for design services.
On this $70,000 supplement, you were able, though, basically to negotiate that 50% off, the way it sounds. Would that be correct?
Correct. JEO would be putting on the table an additional $77,000 in losses.
Okay, thank you.
What is the industry standard for design fees on similar projects, similar size projects?
I would say anywhere from 10 to that 14% is not abnormal. It just depends on what's all in there and how detailed the design is. Here we've got storm sewers that are 10, 12 feet deep. That's a very abnormal situation. Some of the iteration that we went through with the design team, I think it was pretty normal iteration process in terms of working with the stakeholders and working through some of the designs. Certainly the preliminary design on the roundabout there at 4th Street, I'd say that was a pretty good design. There was some concern there. Ultimately, we walked away from that, but we do have that design. It is on the shelf. Should that ever become a option there, we're halfway to a constructible alternative for that site.
Okay. Any further questions?
I do have a question about, moving forward, do we need to think out the process of how we're going to design, like if we're going to put a roundabout in or not, before we pay for the design and then cut it out? I'm seeing that happen here, and I'm seeing it on other future projects, and it's just something I think, it's something I question, I guess.
Well, there's a cost to get there. You have to establish at some point from a conceptual standpoint, can you get it there? If it's a desirable alternative, then you need to look and see if the site will accept it. And then there's economic input after that. Maybe the site will take it, but maybe there's some economics that are still going to rule that out. I would say we work pretty hard to make sure that we move from contract to conceptual design to identify the project up front at a low cost, so that we can move from conceptual design into preliminary and final design with least cost. If we get to 50-60% design and then have to back up because something's unacceptable, that costs us money. But I would say the design process itself addresses that concern. And that's partially why we engage the stakeholders. 30 years ago, 40 years ago, all this stakeholder reach out, community reach out, was a little abnormal. In the last 20 years, probably 25 years, you've seen a lot more money invested in reaching out to the stakeholders to get that design collaboration up front.
I guess I would respond that in these cases that you might be referring to, Shane, the designers and our engineers would say that they could provide an engineering justification for those roundabouts in those cases, because looking at the hard data, typically they are safer, reduce accidents, and make traffic flow more efficient. So, I mean, it's not, and if you compare it to projects in a lot of places around the country, you see more and more roundabouts just because of those facts. and then they take in input, and things sometimes change, so. Any further discussion, comments, council? Sure, discussion's open, yeah.
Mary Swenson. I'm a member of the VFW Auxiliary, and so I get a lot of those notes and stuff and listen to some of that stuff. There just isn't the room there. I know the roundabouts, you're all saying, and I agree with you. More and more and more, I agree that the roundabouts show better. But there's 2 parking lots and a bank, and the VFW is right there on the corner. I just can't see that they're able to do that right, because when you're going around that corner anyway, it's going to be right by the railroad tracks, right next to the VFW building. There's just so many little issues that are right there that, and then taking parking away, where you want to develop the downtown area and you're going to take parking away from them 2 parking lots there. You're going to take, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people, and I don't think it makes sense very much either. But I guess I'm driving the Veterans Home bus through there too, and it's not a piece of cake right now.
And for clarification, Mary, that roundabout proposal has been withdrawn for that
I know, but he's
intersection.
already saying some other things that it's still in the plans and stuff, and it could possibly go back into it. And I'm just making my point that
Right.
it's not.
And just for clarification on your comment there, I'm talking 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road. As the downtown changes, if that becomes a desirable option, you know.
We have some of that
it's-
data on file, I think.
We
is
have
what
it on
yeah,
file.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions, council? If none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 28, would look for a motion to consider approval of a contract with Found Design LLC doing business as Merge for the City of Norfolk, Nebraska wayfinding assessment project for an amount of $21,950. Motion and second, and Steve, once again, background on this, please.
Mayor and council, before you is a wayfinding assessment project proposal for $21,950, $15,000 of which is included in the city's budget for this year. The balance of which would be provided by the Visitors Bureau. Yes, thanks, Andy. I've included in the packet information relative to sample wayfinding concepts that MERS has developed for other communities. MERS is an East Coast company, but they work all across the United States. Several projects for similar sized communities. This would be a community outreach process. The community would be invited to participate with the consultant as we develop kind of the conceptual look for Norfolk. Bringing the Visitors Bureau to the table as part of balancing the budget on this. We would also be inviting some of the surrounding communities to participate in the process as well, and maybe they could benefit as well from community wayfinding. We would anticipate that we would work with MERS over the next 3 months to establish the look that we want to see here in Norfolk. and then structure kind of what maybe that first project might look like for the next budget season.
Steve, it doesn't appear that these folks work anywhere where there's snow.
Well, they do. I know they've done cities up in Montana, cities in Colorado. Well, I know they work in the snow.
No, I don't. They did reference Parker, Colorado, you know, and they had,
Yeah. I think it's pretty exciting in terms of what it is. It kind of leads in a little bit. We've started some preliminary conversation on Complete Streets program for the community. This fits into Complete Streets program, you know, providing that wayfinding for pedestrians, for vehicles, to maneuver through the community and to find some of those destinations that we specifically want to get them to.
well, when was the last time, have we ever done anything like this before?
I'm
Not to this
I'm not
degree
aware
anyway,
of it.
right? Okay. And it appears to me as the downtown develops and things are growing out west, we're certainly, you know, we have infrastructure south of the river that, you know, will allow for a lot of growth down there too. And it seems to me that this may be something that is certainly worth taking a look at. Because you don't want to get people from one side of town to the others.
See, and this is a comprehensive look throughout the community. This isn't pinpointing just one area of the
No,
community.
this is a comprehensive plan. So this is going to look more at the look and feel we want, less about where, but there will be some of the where. The next piece then is now how do we plug it in? What's that first project to start plugging the concept into the community? So this 21,000 just establishes the concept. What is it going to look like?
Okay.
So just a basic study is what they're doing. This is
Correct.
just for study.
They will come up with some kind of a development looking at the city of Portsmouth. They're going to come up with this concept across the bottom here.
Is this like a specialty type company? I mean, there's no other ones
They
that
are.
do this kind of work?
This is
or-
the only. This is all they do.
This is all they do.
Is wayfinding.
So there's nothing in the Midwest similar type company.
Oh, I'm not going to say there's not. You know, a lot of your streetscape, any kind of a streetscape consultant would be able to do something like this as part of their overall scope of service. But again, this is a company, this is all they do. They're really good at it, and they work all over the country.
Strictly design, they're not gonna produce signs, they're not gonna do anything
They don't
like
produce
that. We would
anything.
be able to do that locally
Correct.
if we needed to.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
So we're not necessarily talking about siding here, but does it look at potential integration with DOT corridors? Because I know that's a discussion we've had before, creative ways to point to landmarks within the city along our major arterials that happen to be part of the state DOT system.
I would certainly foresee that some of this signage is going to have to be in a DOT corridor. You know, if we're trying to direct people to downtown Norfolk or direct them out to the west side of the community or to more of our retail, some of our other retail sectors, community function type stuff, we'll have to work with the DOT to get that in our corridor. So I'd say yes, I see them at the table as part of this phase of the project, and then even
they can be part of that process.
even in the next phases as we start to plan where these are going to go.
Any other questions?
It appears as though they would have a lot of experience with that. If you look at what they did for Northwest Arkansas, that incorporates a lot of different communities going on a lot of different government, federal highways. Highway 71, the new interstate down there, and the east and west traffic across Northwest Arkansas there incorporates several U.S. highways as well. So it looks like they probably have a little experience at that.
Any further discussion, council? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 29, would look for a motion to consider approval of addendum number 1 to the engineering design services contract with McLaury Engineering Incorporated for the Gap Paving Projects 2018 for $30,000.
Make the motion.
Second that, Your Honor.
Motion and second. Steve, once again, please.
Mayor and council, another design amendment here. Just a little overview. Originally in our budget for design services, we had budgeted $82,000 for the project. That was kind of before we had I would say, a real concept of how this project was going to come to fruition in terms of the number. I think we were looking at this as really gap paving segments. In the end, we had two gap paving, 2 sidewalk districts, and then another paving district combined to make up the 3 projects or the 3 segments on Georgia Avenue, Square Turn, and 15th Street. Of the original budgeted $82,000, we originally wrote a contract for $65,000, hoping that we could find some efficiencies in the process amongst the 3 projects and squeeze them into potentially 1 set of plans. In the end, we were not able to do that. We ended up creating 2 sets of plans, 2 separate sidewalk districts, and then the 3 paving districts. The total fee with the amendment from a design perspective would be 11.2%. There was an additional $2,500 in design fee added for purposes of platting the middle school property. That sits out there as an unplatted piece of property. We had to move the fence to acquire additional property on the south side of the middle school. And so that was kind of a concession as a function of acquiring that extra right-of-way. The total cost of construction amongst all the projects is $826,045. Again, based on the original contract of $65,000, we were hoping we could see something around 7.9%. Again, this amendment, although the amendment is for $30,000, it's really a $10,500 increase against our original budgeted design services fee. I'd be happy to answer any questions or dig into the numbers.
So, Steve, on the where Square Turn's going to hit Benjamin Avenue,
Correct.
do you anticipate any other engineering services for that particular intersection that would not be included in McLaury's numbers?
Yeah, right now McLaury's design services or the construction of this ends at that first street, just a block south there of Benjamin Avenue. Can't remember the name of the street off the top of my head, but as a function of the design right now that we're looking at, there would be some additional construction associated with the Benjamin Avenue project right there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Speaking of the Square Turn area, I know on Square Turn, that's where there was, I would say, a significant amount of the design changes here was in that how Square Turn merges in with 11th Street. You know, we had no clear concept of what that was going to look like walking into the design. In the end, that is basically we've taken Square Turn, and Square Turn merges into 11th Street becomes Square Turn as you go north. We have a small curve right there that required some changes in the drainage system in that area as well. And there were multiple meetings there with the landowners associated with that intersection as well. Again, the total changes or the total overrun in design fees is about twice what this amendment to the design contract is. It's closer to about $60,000.
But as I read this is really no reflection on the engineering firm.
It's not.
Yeah.
No. I mean, these are real changes that occurred as a function of just the design, looking at the design, and then our need to. We pushed 15th. We had to separate 15th Street because we had an opportunity to get that out on the street and get that constructed a year ahead or 2 years ahead of these other ones, and so that took a little bit of extra work to accomplish as well.
Thank you.
Some of these were circumstantial opportunities to finally get
Yes.
this work done once and for all.
Yeah.
So. Any other questions? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Item 30, look for a motion to consider approval of a professional services consultant agreement with Olson for right-of-way services for the North Fork River Restoration Project and for the trail south of Norfolk Avenue along the North Fork Elkhorn River to Madison Avenue on a time and expense basis not to exceed $12,000. Motion second. And Steve, once again, background on this, please.
This is an hourly not to exceed contract for $12,000 to Olson's and Associates to clean up several right-of-way boundary items on the river south of Norfolk Avenue. So it's kind of between the Hy-Vee gas station and between Hy-Vee's store. The Cottonwood Street right-of-way extends south across Norfolk Avenue, extends south down to somewhere south of the backside of the Hy-Vee gas station's property over the river. Hy-Vee store itself has property that comes into the river. There's the gas station has property that come into the river. There's unplatted property in the river that's just kind of, according to the county assessor, it's just no man's land in there. So we're working to do some quiet claims and clean all of that up. Really is a function of the river project at this point. We started back with Norfolk Avenue reconstruction during acquiring some easements for that project, and now this just kind of cleans all that up so that as a function of the river project, we don't have people trespassing on private property or other.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Steve. Any questions on that? Comments? Hearing none, please vote.
All council members present voting in the affirmative, motion carries.
Takes us to item 31, open public comment period. This is a quarterly opportunity for anyone in the public to make comment on anything they might wish. Questions, concerns, commendations? All right, hearing none. That concludes this meeting. The Norfolk City Council, we are adjourned. Thank you.